have it. Welcome to the board meeting of the Minisink Valley for the April 10th, 2025. We do have a quorum here. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Check this.
I got it, Bill. You sure? Do your thing. All right, just get going on your thing. I got it. Get this out of your way, Angela.
Okay, I'm going to ask for a motion for the approval of the minutes of our last board meeting. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, approves the minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Education of March 26, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Patty Reynolds. Second, Ruth Lewis.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Motion carried. Oh,
I wasn't here.
okay. Yes, Mr. Hines, Dr. Hines. Okay, welcome to the visitors. We have no one signed up, so we'll move to the superintendent's report with Mr. Monahan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cooper. Just a quick shout out to a couple of our scouts here from Troop 1059 who are here working on some merit badges. So thank you for being here. They have to attend a public meeting. So first up, we have approval of updated voter personnel. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, approves the updated list of names for chief inspectors, inspectors, and assistant clerk for Election District 1 and Election District 2 for the May 20, 2025 annual budget vote and election. The district clerk is authorized to contact eligible persons as needed to assist with the vote. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Anthony Monahan.
Second, Scott Hines.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carried.
So next we have our an approval for policy 7551. That's our Title IX sexual harassment and discrimination policy for students. It's for first reading. This is the changes with the new administration in. There have been changes sent out, so we've made those changes. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, on recommendation of the superintendent, approves policy 7551, Title IX sexual discrimination policy for students for a first reading. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Captain DeRose. Second, Ruth Lewis.
We've had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Next, we have an approval for policy 2245. We're going to ask to do a waive on the first reading and move to the second reading. This is the policy you all discussed at the last meeting for our ex officio member. We'd like to do that because we'd like to get this moving along to start the process of selecting the students. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, hereby suspends the requirements of policy 1410, which policy calls for a second reading and a second vote, and hereby adopts policy number 2245, ex officio student board members. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second, Vanessa White.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carried.
Thank you,
Anything else?
Mr. Cooper. We're
Okay.
good? That's all I have.
Okay, we're going to move to the human resources with Mr. Giardino.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. We have a motion to approve the resignation, amendment, and appointments as listed.
So moved, Captain DeRose.
Second, Anthony Monahan.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Okay. We'll move on to curriculum instruction with Mr. Renato.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cooper. So my intent originally was to take a few minutes tonight just to bring the board up to speed with where we are with the New York State 3 through 8 assessments for the spring of 2025, but which I'm still going to do, but it's been a very interesting week if you've been following some of the communications that have come not just from SED, but from the district as well, as relates to some of the issues that SED was running into this week with the 3 through 8 assessments. So just start off quickly here with just some information about where we are with the state tests. So I think everybody is aware that each spring we're required to run math and ELA assessments for grades 3 through 8, and then science assessments for grades 5 and 8. Minisink Valley, a few years ago, did move fully to computer-based assessments, and I think most of us are aware that that is a requirement as per SED. The 2026 school year, schools will be required to fully integrate 3 through 8 for all of those assessments. We've already fully implemented at this point in time, and unfortunately this year, because of that, wasn't because of that, but there were some issues with the state's rollout of the computer-based assessments. So we had all of our grade levels potentially impacted by that. So just a couple of informational pieces first, as I said earlier. So at this point, Otisville is running their 3 through 5 assessments. They started on April 7th. They were supposed to have completed those assessments for grades 3 through 5 as of the 8th. Because of the issues that we ran into, which I'm going to get into in a second, they're pushing back the last half of those assessments until after spring recess, and they'll complete those on April 22nd. The intermediate school had originally planned to run all of their assessments after spring recess, so fortunately for that building, they did not run into the issues that the middle school and Otisville saw. The middle school is running their ELA assessments on April 8th, and again, they were supposed to complete those on the 9th. They were not able to complete the testing on the 9th, and so those tests got pushed back until after spring recess as well. The math assessments and the science assessments are all scheduled to take place after spring recess, and we're hoping by that point in time that New York State will have gotten things straightened out, and the issues that we've run into will be a thing of the past. So again, just a little more information. So you will recall in past years I've talked quite a bit about the participation rate, that 95% participation rate, which is a requirement as per New York State. For quite a few years, Minisink, along with most of the other school districts in New York State, have had difficulty reaching that 95% participation rate because there was a movement amongst parents that started many years ago where families were opting out. And as a reminder, the original purpose and reason why families were refusing to have students take the test was that originally New York State had tied these 3 through 8 assessments directly to teachers' APPR scores. That has long since been phased out. And so we're doing the best we can to encourage families to allow their students to participate in these tests. And as a reminder, student performance on those tests is not held against students in any way, shape, or form. And it is an important opportunity for us to gather data that helps us understand where our students are in terms of proficiency in comparison to their same cohorts across New York State. And we do utilize that data for the very important reason of helping us inform instructional decisions. So decisions about how we're handling various programs and what instruction looks like in the classroom. The more data we have, the better it is in terms of helping us make those instructional decisions. So moving back to the issues we had this past week, if you were able to follow along with some of the communications that came out, Tuesday and Wednesday, which were both computer-based testing days, essentially the system that New York State uses to implement the assessments shut down. And so students who were in the middle of taking tests, they were able to continue to take those tests, but what happened was, when a student completes the test on their device, when they finish, that assessment then is uploaded to this test data center, and that's how they collect the tests and they grade the assessments. The ability for us to upload those assessments was shut down. So we couldn't, even if a student completed the test, we weren't able to upload those to the state. So obviously that's a problem. It's a problem for a couple of different reasons. Not only are we not able to upload the assessments, but the device that the student is using at that point in time, we have to quarantine it. Nobody's allowed to have access to it because again, these are supposed to be secure assessments. And so it really did cause a lot of problems. And I have to tell you that the middle school and the staff over in Otisville did a tremendous job in terms of both being flexible in terms of responding to what happened, keeping students active and calm and reassuring them, and then really dealing with all the quarantining of the Chromebooks and scheduling and moving forward. They did a wonderful job with that, and I really have to send a kudo out to all those folks. Like I said, they did a fantastic job. So when the first issue came into place on Tuesday, New York State assured us that they had solved the issue and that it was rectified, and that we were assured that there was no reason why we could not continue testing on Wednesday. Wednesday came about, middle school students started taking the assessment, and the system shut down again. So we got the same kind of apologetic response from New York State, assurances that they were looking into it and they were going to fix it. But at that point in time, we made a decision that we were not comfortable continuing testing during the course of this week. We made a decision at that point to pause all testing until after spring recess, to both allow the testing vendor and New York State to get their act together, frankly, get the bugs all worked out, and give our students an opportunity to hopefully be able to set for these assessments the next go around and not have to deal with some of these issues. So we do think that pausing the testing until after spring recess, one of the things that it will do is that because spring recesses are staggered across New York State, many schools do have their spring recess following the Easter holiday, that the volume of students taking the assessments that week should be less. And the hope is that with the lower volume, we may not run into these same testing concerns with the test provider. So that's the plan at this point. And we're, like I said, we would never guarantee that everything's going to go well, because it's not really within our control. But we are hopeful that they have rectified the issue and that we will not have these problems again after spring recess. That is where we're at.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
If a student had completed the test and didn't upload it, do they have to complete that test again?
So one of the reasons that the Chromebooks have to be quarantined is that if a student did, the assessment is downloaded to the device, if the student completed it and the device is left alone, once that back-end system is back online, they can just upload that to the system. And so they do not have to start over again. Everything they've done should be stored locally on that device.
Okay. And do we, as a district, do we pay for this testing?
So we do not pay for the testing. We do pay for the grading of the assessment.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Hines has a question also.
Yeah. Is there a consequence if you don't reach 95%?
So the consequence is essentially, ultimately, New York State could withhold funding. That frankly has never happened. But what they have done in the past is, there's different terms that they've used for schools that don't make accountability, but essentially you're labeled as, it used to be called a school in need of improvement. And so what they do is they come to us and say, you haven't met this metric, so your responsibility now is to come up with an action plan of how you are going to ensure that you will hit this metric down in the future.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we're going to move on to pupil personal services with Mr. Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Good evening. Please refer to the executive summary on board docs. The Committee on Preschool Special Education met on 3 days in March and 1 day in April. 26 students were reviewed. I ask for a motion to approve the arrangements of the recommended placements by the Committee on Preschool Special Education as presented.
So moved, Kathy DeRose.
Second, Scott Hines.
We've had a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
The Committee on Special Education met on 10 days in March and 3 days in April. 164 students were reviewed. I ask for a motion to approve the arrangements of the recommended placements by the Committee on Special Education as presented.
So moved. Second.
We've had a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Anything else, Mr. Finn?
Nope.
Okay. We'll move on to the business section with Mr. Witherow.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. First item we have is acceptance of budget transfer report. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, acknowledges receipt of the budget transfer report for the month of March 2025.
So moved, Ruth Lewis.
Second, Anthony Monaco.
We've had a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Next item we have is the treasurer's report for February 2025. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, acknowledges receipt of the treasurer's reports for the month of February 2025.
So moved, Ruth Lewis.
Second, Patty Reynolds.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Next item we have is approval of warrants. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, accepts the claims auditor's report for the following warrants as attached.
So moved, Ruth Lewis.
Second, Scott Hines.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Next item we have is acceptance of a grant. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, accepts the New York State Connect Kids to Parks Field Trip Grant Program for the maximum value for reimbursement in the amount of $1,011. The purpose of the grant is to pay for transportation for a field trip to Sam's Point at Lake Minnewaska.
So moved, Ruth Lewis.
Second, Patty Reynolds.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions?
Not a question, but a comment. I'd just like to offer sincere kudos to whoever applied for this grant.
Yes. Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carried.
Next item we have is approval of an installment purchase agreement. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent of schools, approves the installment purchase agreement with Orange Ulster BOCES for the purchase of network printers. I will forego reading the actual whereas clauses.
So moved, Scott Hines.
Second, Kathy DeRose.
We've had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carried.
Next item we have is declaration of obsolete equipment. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, declares the following items obsolete equipment for the purposes of disposing of the items to the highest responsible bidder and or disposing of the items at the lowest cost to the district.
So moved, Ruth Lewis.
Second, Patty Reynolds.
We've had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Next item is approval of the internal audit risk assessment 2324. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, accepts and files the internal auditor's report of the agreed upon procedures and risk assessment report for 2023-2024.
So moved, Ruth Lewis.
Second, Scott Hines.
We've had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Next item is approval of the internal audit report 2324 payroll. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, accepts and files the internal auditor's report of the agreed upon procedures 2024 payroll.
So moved, Patty Reynolds.
Second, Ruth Lewis.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Next item we have is the 2324 internal audit corrective action plan regarding payroll. Be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon a recommendation of the superintendent of schools, accepts the corrective action plan for the 2324 internal audit report for payroll.
So moved, Ruth Lewis.
Second, Vanessa White.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
And finally, we have the 24-25 quarterly revenue report for the third quarter. Be it resolved that the Board of Education, upon recommendation of the superintendent, accepts the 24-25 third quarter revenue report.
So moved, Ruth Lewis.
Second, Scott Hines.
Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Okay, we'll now move on to the report section. We'll start with the Finance Committee report with Mrs. Reynolds.
Okay, so earlier tonight we had kind of our final budget meeting, Finance Committee meeting, that kind of summarized some of the changes that were made to the budget so that we could balance it as well as possible. We still don't have a finalized budget from the state, but we're pretty confident in the numbers from the state. We also went over how the tax cap levy is calculated, which I think is really important information for the public to have. So just as a reminder, everything is on our website under the budget tab. And of course, you can always, is that budget questions email address still?
Yes.
You can email any budget questions that you might have so that they are accurately and promptly answered. But the most important thing would be to come out and vote on May 20th.
Correct.
Because we could work as hard as we want on a budget, but if people don't come out and vote for it, then it won't be successful.
Ms. Reynolds will have, Mrs. Kriz also put up the connection to the controllers, how they calculate a tax cap, just so they have that information as well, but we'll make sure that's put up.
And we'll be accepting the final budget at the next board meeting.
Correct, the 24th.
And that's all I have.
I do have one quick update for everybody. We have spring break coming up, and you may start to notice around behind the high school, you may see some activity going on because they're going to start doing some pre-staging of equipment to start the next phase of the capital project, which is the cardio center and the upgrades to the weight room. So 2 more teaching stations. We'll have additional teaching station upgrades to another teaching station, but they are going to start working on that. In speaking with Mr. Tranchina this week, they are working on getting the Connex boxes here for storage facility. They're going to be starting to work and get the gravel down to lay those Connex boxes down. First part is removing all that equipment, getting everything staged, getting all the walkways set up, and then we'll be really hitting the ground running once the students are out. They are chomping at the bit to really start the heavy duty work, but all the pre-staging and all the stuff that they can do that's not going to interrupt the educational process of the kids during the day or interrupt our Regents exams. They're going to try to make sure all of that stuff is done so they're really moving as quickly as they can. So just wanted to give everybody a quick update on that.
Okay. And next will be
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I know we talked briefly. Is this going to delay our anticipated timelines on our project?
Not at this time, you know. We'll see how everything else goes.
Okay.
As you are well aware, during any construction project, things always pop up, but they've tried to detail all this out to the day to get it done as quickly as possible.
Okay, our next is district events and comment period. Would anyone like to discuss some district events they went to? There's quite a few that I saw people at.
I will go first, Mr. Cooper.
Okay.
If you don't mind. Last Thursday night, I attended the science fair at Otisville. It's always a fan favorite to go to that. Tons of children putting their displays on, which was absolutely amazing. And probably the best part is when they're explaining what they did and how they got to their conclusion. And it was pretty cool. Again, a well-attended event, and the kids are excited to be there, and we're excited to be there because it just shows how much effort our teachers and staff put in here, as well as our children. So that was really cool. I did attend all 3 nights of our show here at the high school. It was absolutely amazing. A few mishaps, but again, everything. Everybody's on it, right? There's always a plan in place, and shout out to Dr. Hines for helping with a few things there, and just all the parents and the kids and all the effort. And we had, I think, Miss White, was it the best ticket sales in a long time? Is that what I heard flying around? That it was over 1,000 and some people. Mr. Monahan reported that the early show on Thursday was like one of the biggest turnouts in forever. It's great that the National Honor Society puts the dinner on, and then the kids get to do the show on Thursday night too. So that's really awesome to get people in our building that might not regularly come here to check out what's going on.
200 senior citizens came for dinner that night, and Ms. Ruffino, our newest advisor, outstanding job of having all the kids feed everybody. It was wonderful, and to the point where Mrs. Hall actually sold additional tickets because they wanted people to get into the show. So I think we sold another 150 on top of that night.
That's awesome.
So,
it's also one of my
turnout.
Yeah, it's also one of my favorite weekends. I like to stand up and welcome people to come in. stand up there with Paulette or whoever is up there. It's quite enjoyable to see everybody coming in the building and the smiles on their faces. And it was definitely, what's that? Shaking hands. Yes, I enjoy it. I'm a people person, so it's fun to see everybody coming in. And yes, I was so christened to get the elevator key, but actually, Paulette, she came in to watch the show, and she's like, "That's my job," but she really wasn't working. So the people around here really care whether they're on the clock or not on the clock. They're on it around here. So that was again pretty cool. So a great weekend, great turnout. That's all I got. And I saw several board members and people there over the weekend, and I'm sure they'll comment on it themselves. That's all I got.
I was at the show, it was amazing. Kids, Minisink puts out some of the best drama productions. Some of them rival Broadway, to be honest with you. We are very blessed with wonderful mentors and directors and volunteers. So, very blessed here at Minisink.
So I also attended the show, it was fantastic. Ms. Hull and Ms. Parker do a fantastic job with the cast and crew. And those kids really, their heart and soul is in it. I also attended modified baseball last night and tonight. Tonight was much colder than last night. But we have got some great athletes coming up on the modified team, so it's good to watch.
I do want to just make one comment about the High School Musical. I think the most telling thing was on Sunday when the seniors get to say goodbye, and then they all get to say something about the teachers and the staff that helped put on the play. And every year, the heartfelt thanks that they have, and you really see how some of these teachers and other folks from the community have shaped these kids' lives. And one woman in the cast said she wanted to become a music teacher because she wanted to be the Miss Cornacchio to other people out there. So it was very moving, and I think it goes to show just how much our faculty here cares about the kids and what they do. So.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I also went to the science fair, which was amazing. First graders to fifth graders. There was volcanoes.
Lots of volcanoes.
What's that?
Lots of volcanoes.
Lots of volcanoes. There was experiments with white flowers where they would put fruit dye in the bottom. There was an animal there, I don't know how to pronounce it, that if you chop the leg off, it would grow back. But I got a great kick out of walking around, and if there was a student scientist there that was waiting, they would kind of wait for you to go there, and then you would listen to them present. And very enthusiastic, they knew what they were talking about. You can see they put a lot of time and effort into researching each problem that they had. And also it was very interesting when they would present, if their parents were standing there, if you caught the corner of the eye, the joy or the pride that they had in watching a student, present to a stranger. And it was really interesting, and it's only my second time going, but I really enjoy going to it, and I think the PTO puts it on, so they do a fantastic job. But the student scientists were awesome, and they're really into it. They're really, there's one there that had, it was something to do with planets that are outside of our solar system, and she had her laptop set up, and she had a lamp set up, and showed the planet outside the solar system, and how it would spike on the graph, and she was explaining it. She was a fifth grader, but there were a few kids there that I saw from last year to this year, and you can see how they're nervous when they're talking to you, and you can see that some of them are maybe they're in a shell, but when you step up and you ask them, what are you doing, what was your project, they just shine, and it was really very nice to see that. And then I also went to Footloose one night, and like Kathy said, they really put on a good show. you know, and you can see the progression from the middle school to, gotta feed the dogs. You know, the talent that you see go through the different buildings, and then it culminates in the high school. And like Dr. Hines said, you know, the seniors get to express their gratitude and you know, thankfulness to the teachers that helped them through it. And as Mrs. Hull said, it takes a community, and it's, you know, there's people volunteering to put the sets together, put the dresses together. This year, the 2 senior students did the choreography, which was amazing. But yeah, it was another great production. We're very, very fortunate.
But we're definitely not smarter than some of those 5th graders, I bet, from the science fair.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot in that 1 hour.
I also attended the science fair and the musical. I also yesterday was fortunate to do the BOCES tour at Gibson Road, and as Ms. Lewis said in the last thing, if you've not done one of these tours, it's really like eye-opening. Like I went through the CTEC portion and went through I think like 10 different areas, and actually got to speak to the kids in several of the areas as a board member, looking on to them and telling them different opportunities that, you know, I see for them from my son-in-laws that have gone through that program and have thrived from that. And then the special services section with their sensory division, the Liberty Elementary, the Strive programs, which has just astronomically increased, and they thanked Minisink for actually being part of that. They started out with 6 classrooms in their Strive program, which is for students basically on the spectrum, and they're now up to 30 classrooms there, and we have 15 classrooms in Otisville, and they just said it's exploding, the need for those type of programs. So, and it was a very, I guess you would say, enlightening and enjoyable tour. So, and I encourage all of us that maybe haven't gone, and they were looking for Mr. Monaco. They said, when Mr. Monaco coming back? So they were asking about it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Cooper, I'm glad you missed me.
But that's all I have, Mr.
They missed me, I'm sorry.
Mr. Monahan, you had one more thing?
Just quickly for our scouts, and I know I have some students up there who are probably here for their participation in government class. We have agendas down here that you can come down and grab an agenda, and you can come and see me after the meeting, and I'll sign those agendas for you so that your teachers know you were here, okay? Yeah, we'll take care of that in a second. So that's all I have, Mr. Cooper.
Okay, I'm gonna ask for a motion to enter into executive session to discuss an employment history of a particular person's and a matter made exempt under federal law, FERPA. The board may take action after this executive session. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Kathy DeRose.
Second, Anthony Monaco.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carried. Thank you for coming. Have a wonderful break.
Drive safely, everyone, in that not nice weather.